Hi everyone, this is our video lesson for lesson 132. So one thing I want to point out is the homework for this assignment. It starts on page 119. I do want you to do problems 1 through 10, but I am definitely changing the directions. The directions in the workbook, first of all, says identify problems 1 through 10 as either experimental, observational, or a survey. So go ahead and do that. You don't have to justify it unless you want to, but 1 through 10, classify it as one of these three. Then what I want you to do is pick only any two problems from 1 through 10. I want them to be of a different study. So one should be classified as an observational study, maybe the other is a survey. Maybe one is a survey, and then another one that you pick is an experiment, and so on. Just pick two problems, and I want you to design an effective study for each of those problems. That'll make sense once I go through what it takes to be an effective study. Lastly, again, for a problem that you haven't picked already in part B, pick another problem and create a flawed study. Okay, so again, with all of these assignments, just try your best. Unfortunately, we can't interact so much where I can address all of your homework questions, but I know you guys are doing the best you can, and I am too. So try your best. That's all I ask for. All right, so page 113 takes us to the warm-up. You are given the following three claims, okay? Identify the type of study that would likely lead to each claim. Part 2 says, kind of question each of the claims, okay? Question how valid each of them might be. All right, so here's some of my answers. So this is how I would classify claim A, B, and C. And here are some questions that I came up with that, would cause us to question what claim A states. Here are some questions as to that pertain to claim B. Here are some things I would want to know. I'm sure you could think of others. Again, these are just some examples. All right. Sorry, just adjusting the camera. All right, so studies are important for gathering information. In this lesson, we are going to learn how effectively we can design a study that will yield reliable results. Here's our focus. Hopefully by the end of the video, you feel comfortable designing a study, whether it's an experiment, survey, or observational study, using the 5 steps on how to create an effective study. All right, let's get some vocab out of the way. We want our results to be reliable. That means we don't want it to be biased. We don't want the data to be skewed in any way. A confounding variable is an ignored or unknown variable that influences the result of an experiment, survey, or observational study. And then random, the selection of group, subgroup, or sample without following any kind of pattern and without being biased. We're going to talk about different types of methods of how to select a group or particular subjects for a study at random. That'll kind of be our focus for next week lessons. All right, so here are the 5 steps that I was already referencing when I was talking about today's homework assignment. So designing an effective study consists of the 5 following steps. Give you guys some time to read through it, and then we're going to do an example that illustrates each of the steps. Friendly reminder, if I am moving too fast, then please pause the video. Give yourself some time to process the information. All right, so here we go. All right, let's design an effective study. Here is the scenario. This year, it seems as though DGS students have been less likely to attend water polo games. Administration would like to give some type of incentive to improve the attendance at these meets. Students who attend water polo meets will get a $5 gift card that can be used at the school bookstore or cafeteria. So what should we do? Should we do a survey, an experiment, or an observational study? For something like this, we can do an experiment, because when we do an experiment, you're basically changing one variable. So the variable that we could change is giving a gift card or not giving a gift card. Okay. All right, so let's go through the 5 steps of creating an effective study. What's the purpose? The purpose of this experimental study is to see whether or not giving a $5 gift card will be a good enough incentive for students to attend more DGS water polo games. All right, what is the population that we want to study? The population is going to be DGS students of all grade levels. Moving on, let's generate some neutral questions. Again, this is what I came up with. Please feel free to think of some on your own. All right, so the next part, step 4, describe how to assign the subjects or participants randomly. And when we do this, we want to avoid being biased in any way, and we want to control the confounding variables and kind of make sure there aren't any. So I just kind of thought of, why not choose people whose last names begin with the following letters? Maybe we go based off of ID numbers, and anyone who has a 5 or a 7 in their ID, then they could be part of the study. Okay, lastly, let's choose a large enough number of subjects. So maybe we choose at least 300 students from each grade level. Okay, we don't want a small amount like, 10, but let's pick something that's reasonable for our experiment. All right. So example 1, page 115. Go ahead, read the following scenario. Read the questions that are being asked. And here's how I would have responded. Again, these are just some ideas. If you could think of other responses, that's fabulous. Had we been in class right now, we would have been discussing this a little bit more, kind of having a group discussion and sharing out loud some ideas. All right, example 2. Here's some limitations that I've kind of come up with. And here are some ideas as to how we could kind of maybe limit the flaws. All right, takes us to example 3. So here are some flaws that I thought of within this experiment. And then should we consider whether or not this experiment is really conducted in a randomized manner? All right, this brings us to example 5. Okay, and then we're going to go back to example 4. All right, finally, that does conclude our lesson. This is the assignment I would like you to do for this particular lesson. Pretty straightforward, page 119, problems 1 through 10. Just kind of follow the directions that I initially stated. Let me maybe show you that slide again. So for the assignment, if you can, maybe do the following, okay? Let me quickly kind of skim through the problems. This is more for those of you that may not have taken the workbook home, or maybe you didn't get one last week for whatever reason. Okay, again, here are just a few quick responses to how I would go about answering these problems. And again, remember, this is more like part 1 of the homework that I asked you to do. You know, how would you classify problems 1 through 10? Would you classify it as a survey, an experiment, or an observation? Okay, lastly, please look at my little side note. We have our problem-based task on page 117. This is just for some additional practice. This is not going to be graded, so you could try this, you could not try it. I'm totally fine with whatever you decide. But in case some of you want some additional practice, here you go. And if you need a little bit of guidance on how to go about creating the survey, here are some questions that could kind of help coach you through the process. All right, that concludes our lesson, and thank you again. I appreciate your time.